Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for an episode of the Hold On to Your Heart Project podcast. My name is Jackie, and I'm the host. Tonight, I'll be speaking with Jonte, who is a convention refugee who left his country for a safer community. Listen in as he shares his struggles and successes. Hi, Jonte. Thank you so much for coming onto the Hold On to Your Heart Project podcast. I really appreciate you joining us for this conversation. I've done a brief introduction to who you are, and do you want to just share a little bit about yourself? Where are you from? What you do?
I am, well, everyone already knows by now, my name is Jonte. I'm born and raised in Jamaica, and everyone knows that I work at Walmart. So and my second job is I work at the Amazon warehouse as well. So it's busy life.
Busy life.
Yeah,
2 jobs.
2 jobs, 14-hour days sometimes. So it's like,
Do you feel like, are you working hard for something in particular?
No, just to be able to like survive.
Yeah.
I think everyone right now is trying to just survive mostly.
In that same boat. You
In the
need
same
2
boat.
jobs.
You
Yeah.
need 2 jobs. The real goal is to go back to school at some point.
Yeah.
Waiting on my permanent residence to be able to do that. So because it'd be a little cheaper, but yeah. So that's what I've been doing.
How long have you been in Cranbrook if you've been working to get your permanent residence?
I've been in Cranbrook since 2016.
Wow.
So I've been here for like 7 years.
What do you think is your favorite part about Cranbrook?
I don't know.
Do you have a favorite part?
Well, and it's small. I would say that it's small, so you can easily connect with people that way because everyone kind of knows everybody.
Like
So
you say, everyone knows you work at Walmart, right? It's that small.
Right, it's
Yeah.
that small. Like, I can't go anywhere, and it's without being like, you work at Walmart. I'm like, yay! I can't never hide from this place. I just funny for my assistant managers at Walmart because they're like, no one knows that we work there, but they know you. I'm like, fair. So yeah, it's small. It's a tight knit community.
Did you come here from Jamaica?
Yes, through connected flights though, because I just had to go to Toronto first, then to Calgary, and then I arrived to Cranbrook.
And you came alone?
Yes, I came alone.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was 18 years old, coming alone and into a different world, where like I only knew one person, 2 people, so it was like a brand new adventure, a little bit of like not knowing what to expect and like who you're gonna meet and everything like that. So,
Who did you know that was here?
I actually have a half brother.
Oh.
So his mom met my dad back in Jamaica, and one thing led to another.
Yeah.
And his mom came back here, and he was born here.
Okay.
So yeah.
That's
So
cool.
there's the 2 people I knew, and then kind of went off on my own a little bit, trying to, while going to school and at working and everything. So it was just kind of like basically start from the bottom, in a way. Like you're trying to create a different life.
Yeah.
In a complete different country where norms and cultures are different.
You're starting from the ground up, building a new foundation.
Yeah.
Leaving what you knew behind and starting something fresh.
Yeah. Starting something fresh, and I've made some good friends along the journey so far, and yeah, I've connected with some great people, and I'm on the Cranbrook Pride Society board, so it's I'm doing a little things here and there.
Kind of get you more connected and like feeling part more of like a community and whatnot. Yeah. That's amazing.
So so it's not terrible living here. I do want to move one day, but.
Do you have somewhere in mind?
Well, I've always wanted to move to Vancouver, but I think Ontario is kind of looking like a good direction.
Yeah.
But it depends on which school I get into,
Right.
because I don't want to move without a plan.
Yep.
Right? You have to have something in place. I know some people just move to a different city sometimes, and it's just you're just like, I really need a plan. I can't just move to a different place. Because I take into like everything into factors, sorry. And yeah, like finances, like how expensive it is to live at that place, kind of thing. So, yeah.
Well, that's totally fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, good luck with, finding that and what you do next. But glad that you're here in Cranbrook for now, and glad that you're on the podcast. And I know that you have a special story to share. And I guess we'll just kind of jump right into it. So, when thinking about holding on to your heart, being the name of the podcast and kind of what brings us together in this conversation, what do you think of when you think of holding on to your heart?
I think of like holding on to your self-worth and like remembering that your self-worth, despite how sometimes how the world can make you feel. So yeah, it's self-worth. And like I kind of live by this quote that I needed in like a very dark time of my life, and it was like, your worth isn't contingent on other people's acceptance of you. It's something inherent. You're allowed to take up space and voice your thoughts and your feelings, and you have the right to remove anyone from your life that makes you feel less than, and to foster that kind of like relationship or like circle or intimate collective, I should say, with people that are going to be supportive to you and who are going to see your self-worth as well and contribute to that.
So do you have a time or an experience that would kind of shed some light on, the self-worth and this piece of acceptance and, having inherent self-worth?
Yes. And this was like back home in my home country during my teen years. It was a time in my life where it was like I felt less than human. And to give that context, it was like in my home country, it's like very frowned upon to be part of the LGBT community. And it's culturally embedded, so it's not just the opinions of a few, it's something that's part or built into the culture. And you'll find it's sometimes in like, when I was living there I would say the time frame 2010 to 2015, when I was still back home, that was like the time frame of where you would see most of it like embedded into music and embedded into religion and stuff like that. So yeah, it was like the time of my life where I say like it was fearful. Like you had to fear. There was a lot of fear, a lot of judgment in that time period. So it's, I really needed that quote, because that's when that quote was like, it was random too, the quote that I mentioned with about your self-worth. It was a random one that I found. I don't even know who actually said it. So it was something I needed at the time, because it was kind of like scary to live in a world like that, where there's no resources, you can't trust anyone, you can't talk to anyone about it, and you would expect that you're the people that should love you unconditionally, you should be able to turn to, but I couldn't at the time.
Did you have a time that like you just knew you couldn't? Like what stood out as the point of like, oh no, I can't do that, or I can't lean on these people or trust these people with this, or
how I knew that it was like, how I knew it wasn't good to like
that you needed to fear
my so like everyone that goes through puberty kind of thing, you kind of notice what you're like attracted to, in a sense, being like a 12-year-old boy, and you're just like, and you're around all the 12-year-old boys, and it's just like they're all fascinated with, they're like, oh, girls, 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 and then there's you in the corner just being like, oh, why do I have a thing for Dwayne?
yeah.
Like, why do I have a thing for a guy? And it's like, but there was no one to explain it to you. And then when they did explain it, it was like, oh, it's just a phase. So there was a part of me that was just like, oh, okay, it's just a phase, no big deal. I don't have to worry about this. I'm just one of the people that have to go through it. But then I realized it wasn't a phase when Rick from The Walking Dead came out. It was like, oh, this is not a phase that they were saying. But then the reality of like, okay, this is not just a phase. But then you realize that you're in a country where it's not like it's not acceptable. So now it's like this became my dirty little secret, that kind of the laundry that you can't air out, kind of thing. So it was just like having to completely hide who you are. But then there was the presumptions, presumptions like in my culture, it's very hyper masculine. So if you don't portray yourself a certain way as a guy, you're immediately like clocked as like, oh, you're gay. It's so it was just the assumptions around my sexuality still led to like the teasing and the bullying in some cases, people threatening your life because they hate it so much. And realizing that, oh no, this is a part of me that I simply I can't let it get out. I can't hide it. It's gonna affect my life in a way where it shouldn't, but it did. So yeah, it was the realization. And like being, my parents kind of did shelter me from the world a little bit. They didn't talk about certain things. They didn't expose me to certain things on the news and like what's happening, because I was just in their minds. I'm just a kid. I didn't need to worry about that. And I realized like there was a specific news report that came up, and it was about some LGBT people that were living in hurricane drains, right?
In hurricane
drains. So it's like during a hurricane in the Caribbean, we'd have like those storm drains. Like it's like a storm drain, but it's bigger because it's a hurricane. Like if you have hurricanes, that's where most of the water would go.
Yeah.
So it was like I was like watching news report about that, and like seeing the reactions of people to these men who unfortunately had to turn to certain things in order to survive, and seeing that the hate towards them, it was just more like, oh, so this is not just something that some people are going to be like, oh, I disagree, this is a full-on, they can't even get work because of who they are, or because of who they are. And there's nothing to protect them in that regard. So it was realizing that and realizing my position in that society at the time, and it was hard. So now it was hard to like come to terms with it in the beginning, that, oh, this could possibly be my life if this ever happens. Because some of these gay men who are homeless and everything were kicked out at a very young age. So like 14, 15 years old. And so they'd be living on the street since. So, and it's, and I couldn't talk to anyone about it. Because it wasn't just personal opinions, it was also systemic. It wasn't just, oh, this percentage of the population believes this. It's also systemic. So it was, so you're realizing like, oh, this could possibly be my life if anything gets out. So I was already living in fear before I even was able to say the words, I am gay. And watching like more news reports that like this one was like a younger kid, same age as me at the time, a year older, same age group. And yeah, the news reporter he went to this, like a homeless kid going to a party, and unfortunately the adult, like the adults and like anyone else that were there found out that he is, and they, what can I say? It was hard to hear and hard to watch because I was like, that's a child, but they killed him. They, and I won't go into the things that they did to him, but like all these years later, they still haven't solved it to see the participants. But then, you know, because it was mob violence, like it wasn't just one or two people, it was the entire mob of men and women who were just, you know, attacking this poor kid. And I don't even know if they knew it was a kid at the time either. So it was hard.
They knew he was gay.
Yeah, it was hard to watch that. And then I pictured myself and I'm like, this is something that could possibly happen to me. So so it makes it more fearful, and that's makes me, you know, more fearful of the things that could possibly happen. And you know, starting high school, and really like 13 years old is when we were at grade 7. Back in my home country, 13 years old is grade 7. So it's like now, and that's high school. So we have like grade 11 and grade 10 children like in the same mixed year for high school. So it was like having to now navigate that when people presume that you are before you're even like seeing that you are who you are. It was a tough couple first year of high school because it was like the constant harassment. It was always constant bullying, and like watching everyone look at you look at you as if like your humanity doesn't matter. Like in their eyes, like you're the worst thing on the planet. Like you're the worst thing to even have empathy for, right? And don't get me wrong, there was like one or two people like that were just, you know, were on my side to an extent, but it was just like, it felt like a bigot, like you were the enemy, and like everyone else was just like, have to get rid of you kind of thing, because you were a threat for some reason. And yeah, so
That would have been so tough
yeah.
and scary.
Oh yeah, it was scary, and I wasn't telling my parents that I was being, you know, harassed at school and harassed on the street. Like I was keeping it the secret because I know that if they get involved, it's gonna reveal certain things. And they did have to get involved at this high school, my second year actually, because I was physically assaulted by, you know, you're a grade 8 kid and you're just walking home or trying to walk to the main bus stop to get home, and then, you know, it was a group of grade 11 boys, I believe, and they like physically attacked me. And that was kind of another moment in my life where I'm like, okay, this is the day that I'm gonna be a statistic, you know. And I didn't report it to the school when it happened, because they weren't gonna take my side. And, you know, it's always, well, it's your fault. You know, that was another thing too. It was like they would say it was my fault that this happened. You know, if only you changed, if only you weren't that way, then this wouldn't happen to you. So there's that victim blaming mentality there as well. That, you know, that it makes you even question, like, who can you trust? As I said, like, I couldn't go to anyone about it. And yeah, so it's just, sorry. I don't even know what to, like.
No, that paints a really good picture about like all the fear that was kind of existing around you in that time, and like just trying to get by and not feeling safe and not having security in who you are, right? Like, you know, having your own confusion and doubt perhaps, but then just like, yeah, not having literally anywhere to go with that, you know?
Yeah.
So it sounds like a definitely really scary time, and you're seeing the effects of what it could be like if people found out or knew, and at such that tender age too, of going to school and,
Yeah.
you know, the whole works.
And it did take a toll on my mental health at the time as well. So after that physical assault, I did transfer to a different high school because my grades were being affected. And because I was going through that, it was like these moments where I wish I could turn to my parents, but I couldn't at the time. And it affected my mental health so bad that I started talking to the guidance counselor at the high school I transferred to, and it was something where I didn't know that talking to her about it was going to be labeled as a confession. I didn't know that. I can see the other aspect too, where my high school was concerned about my mental health and everything, but it was like their policy around it was that they had to tell my parents. And I didn't know what day that was going to really be. So it was just like that waiting game of, oh, what's going to happen now? Because I didn't think I was going to get outed by anybody. But then, because it was affecting my mental health so much, I was, as a child, you reach out to trusted adults. So, guidance counselor, I reached out to a teacher or two about like what's happening and whatever, sorry. And this is really hard to talk about because it's like, how do I even talk about everything that happened without going into too much details? But yeah, and I did like confide in a friend, a few friends that I thought I could trust at the moment, but it ended up that I couldn't, and I was eventually outed to people at school. That the guy that we presumed was gay, he's actually gay. So that's when it went, the verbal assaults and the harassment and the bullying were increased like 1,000 times more. Because now it's like, oh, so, you confessed to it, so we were right this entire time, so now they took the stance of, we're gonna like treat you less than human even more. And then they had to out me to my parents. And that one was really hard because it was like, it was taken away from me. It wasn't my opportunity or choice to say that, to say, hey, mom, dad, I'm gay. But like, I didn't get the chance to. So it was hard to like go through that. And the fact that I had to sit in the office with my dad and my guidance counselor, and she's the one that said it. Like, I didn't even get to say the words myself. She was like, oh yeah, Mr. Hurlock, your son is gay. And like, watching my father's reaction to that, like, it's almost as if he was about to have a heart attack in the office. And she kind of told him, and this is how I believe they've tried to have a discussion about homosexuality. It's like, there's a curious stage, an experimental stage, and then there is, oh, that you are full-blown homosexual. And then that is when I had to confess to my dad that, yes, I did do something. I did mess around with a boy a neighbor up the street from us. And then...
Why do you feel like you had to say that to them?
Because my dad asked
Clarify
me,
it.
Yeah, my dad asked, what stage are you at? Basically. Instead of, he's like, what stage are you at? And very upset. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to lie to you. It's already out there. So here it is.
Yeah.
And And you can say it was like really not a great place for me to, I shouldn't have said anything because then I just outed someone else, right? And now
Right.
he is going to be in trouble too. So, you know, it's getting out there now. Like it's now spreading and it's not in my control anymore. After that, getting my control anymore. And then having to live through that time of what's going to happen the next day, you know, the next day. And just, you know, trying to process it as a child. Because it's like I'm on my own, basically. So I didn't go home that night. I ended up at my aunt's house. And it was this, and this is an aunt on my mom's side. It was the full-on discussion about what are we going to do about this. And, you know, that's what my dad suggested. No, maybe if I pay a prostitute to have sex with him, it might change anything. And I said, being in that position of like bawling my eyes out, I'm like, no. And he got mad at me even more because it was like,
How dare you not take the help?
right? How dare I not do this? Oh, sorry. And then, you know, we had to go home that night. So went home that night, and it was when he was now dropping certain comments. And he was like, oh no, we have to have a separate dish and separate plate for you and separate cup. Because I don't want to share that with no F word. Insert F word. And it was like, you know, I was expecting it from the outside world, of course. But then it made me question, is my dad not seeing that I'm his child? Like, did that parental love suddenly disappear because of this information?
Did you feel it before with your dad?
Yeah, we didn't have a great relationship before him finding out, but like, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
It wasn't, oh, my own parent is now scorning me. You know?
That couldn't have felt good, having that kind of relationship at home. And
yeah, and you know, so and then 2 days later, it was one of the friends that I thought were my friends was asking like how everything is going, and I was like just on the phone talking to him, and my dad suddenly was like, he saw me, he came up, and he's like, oh, so you're talking to your boyfriends now? Huge accusation. I was like, no, it's just a friend. And then that is when you can say like it was something that crushed me, and that's when I officially questioned my self-worth. And it's like my father chose to like threaten my life in that moment. And if you want to go into the words, it was because it still rings in my head to this day, because it's something that I haven't truly forgiven him for. And it's and it was like, if I had a gun, I would shoot you. You know, and it was hard to hear that from a parent, because now not only did your parental love disappear, my humanity did too. So I had to go to my aunt's house for an entire weekend after that day, because my mom overheard what he said. I don't know the conversation that my mom had with him or anything, but I was sent away for that weekend, and you know, they came back the Sunday. I don't know what the conversation was. I don't
what
know
do you
what my
suspect it could have been?
I think based on conversations with my mom now, she was pretty pissed off.
Yeah.
Because she was like, because she was on the same side with him at the time, and she was like, "That's our child." Like I get how we feel right now, but like, she was upset and told him that it's our kid. Why would you say that? Right? And that's when I was like, he's no different than the outside world. And at school, I wasn't getting the adequate protection that I needed at the time. I felt like this is where like I could trust nobody. So for years, I've just like kept it inside and not talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you practice not talking about your feelings, it gets bottled up.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's when the masking comes in, where I will mask whatever I'm feeling because I couldn't let them see me cry because that made it worse. I had to pretend it didn't affect me. I had to pretend that the verbal assaults, the continuous threats to my life didn't affect me at all.
Mm-hmm.
I had to just like hold everything in because, again, as I said, I felt so alone that I couldn't talk to my own family about it. I couldn't talk to a friend about it or our classmates or anyone at school because it felt as if I say something, they're not going to be supportive or it could be a danger to me.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just, during that time with the lies, the rumors, there were some rumors that I heard about myself. You know, that lovely quote where people just, someone kind of says, I've heard so much about you. It's like, do tell.
Yeah.
So it was like that. So I questioned my worth and I felt worthless. Like I meant nothing to anybody. And my school requested my parents to send me to a psychologist to help with my issues. And I thought it went for 2 months, but it interfered at school. And then there was the praying over you kind of thing. So my parents became more devout Christians after that. After me finding out that I'm gay, they became more devout in their Christianity. Now I had these people in robes coming home, praying and rubbing holy oil over me and praying and and it wasn't just like any silent prayer. There was shouting, there was some, the devil's needs to release you kind of thing. It wasn't a small prayer like here in Canada. I go to church here in Canada, it's like, I'll pray for you, and it's a small little prayer. No, it was like
intense.
For me?
Intense.
It was intense. And then I had to put myself back in the closet in a way. So that's when you can say self-inflicted conversion therapy. Self-inflicted conversion therapy where now I had to sit down and pray the gay away. Because that's the only way I think my parents would ever love me. The only way they'll ever accept me is if I come home and say I am straight. And I did believe I was an ex-gay for a very long time.
Did you?
I did, and I was like, feelings came up, so I prayed. I did something wrong with a guy, I prayed. And it was the continuous, like, I wouldn't say it's completely my fault that I did that, but like, it's something that I had to do. And I had to deny my parents the truth about how I was exactly feeling. And, having your parents at the time tell you like, oh, if you don't change, you can't be part of the family anymore. Hearing that kind of just like pushed me to do that even further, because now I'm losing my family, right? And like, who wants to lose your family? Who wants to lose your support system? I didn't even know I was going to be able to leave my home country. So putting myself through that was just like, okay, I got to suppress. I got to make sure that, it was, I was going to come out straight in the end, right? So it was hard.
It sounds hard.
Yeah.
It sounds really tough and a lot to deal with and cope with and try and figure out on your own.
Yeah, and not being able to talk to anyone about it. Because when it came onto the psychologist that I had to go to, she kind of gave me the options of you can stay this way and lose everything, or you can follow the rules of Christianity. At the time, I didn't even know it was conversion therapy that I was going through. But this time, but that was the self-afflicted one. That was like the actual one for 2 months. And I was like, I learned that here in Canada. I was like, oh, I did not know that. Had no idea. When my current therapist here is talking to me about it, I was like, he revealed like, that's conversion therapy. I was like, oh,
That's what I was doing. Yeah.
I didn't even know. So it's like,
You were just doing whatever it took to feel safe, probably, and secure,
yeah,
right?
to feel safe. I didn't leave my house as like, my teen years was, didn't leave my house. I didn't go anywhere to have fun. I didn't really have any friends who wanted to do that. And, walking around in the general public back home, it was like that. You had to have your senses heightened because someone might look at you and say, oh, you're whatever, from any assumption that they want to make, or they know, and then they're just they might attack you. Mm-hmm. And you don't have anyone that's going to actually stand up for you. Mm-hmm. And that's the kind of world that I was living in. It was like, these people, if I was going to get attacked in the middle of the street, they weren't going to do anything. Mm-hmm. Some people were going to justify it and say that I deserved it because, well, you're an abomination. And, it's just, and it's not like religion was helping with promoting tolerance and acceptance and love. They were also on the same boat. Mm-hmm. And it was also the religious people. It is everyone around me felt like a threat because I didn't know who to trust at the time. So for years, living back home, I was just not talking about how much it was affecting my mental health. And then moving to Canada, it was, I thought that leaving my home country meant dropping all the baggage. Never had to look back at it again. But came to Canada, I'm like, well, that was a lie. I am now, it's affecting my life because I'm keeping all of it in, but I am displaying this personality out to other people. Mm-hmm. I am displaying this love, like this kind-hearted, like super positive person all the time. But deep down, I'm just like, I'm struggling. Mm. And I didn't have the words to explain to any of my friends at the time, in my early 20s, about what was going on. Like, this, to identify the problem, for them to understand why I was like, I moved from this, once they got closer to me, I moved from this super happy person that they know to like, this person where like, oh, you're not as stable as you look, kind of person. So it was.
And what are like the highlight things that make it so? Like, what does it look like on the other side of what they see? Like being positive and the mask, and then what's the reality, and what's that look like?
Or to have like a mask up like that.
Yeah, like when you say your friends, they go from, oh, you're not that, you're this, and what's this? Like, what's the darker part of that?
I didn't even know how to explain it to them properly. No, it was...
What are they seeing on you, do you think, that is like, oh, you're not stable? Like, is there things that you're doing that signify the instability?
I was, let's just say, you can apply pressure to something, and then it like eventually that will crack. Mm-hmm. So for me, it was that pressure of like, oh, I'm not dealing with my issues. Bury it. Just bury it. Don't focus on it. Don't deal with it. And I exploded. Mm-hmm. I cracked. I was more depressed. I was more, I wasn't taking care of myself very much. During this time, I was like still dealing with my parents. Every semester my dad was like threatening to disown me. I had constant arguments with my mom about it, and it was always like, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus kind of arguments all the time, because she's like, this is wrong, it's not justifiable, it's wrong in the eyes of God, I'm not going to support it. And And having that happen while you're not dealing with it, and you didn't have the language to describe what you're going through, I was crashing. I was not that figure that my friends knew me as at the time. I was crashing, and I needed help, but I didn't know how to get it. And eventually, there were some resources here that I reached out to. I took they call it bravery and the courage to ask for help. So I got diagnosed with borderline personality disorder in 2019, and I've been on that. And I had to go to dialectical behavioral therapy for 2 years to get it manageable, because it's not gonna fully be cured, it's just manageable. And then realizing that my trauma from back home, from all the fear from my life, from all of the betrayals and things that happened, that contributed to this happening, to this diagnosis. So now it's like I have to go face that. And now it puts me on a journey of where do I even begin? What do I need to deconstruct? Because the internalized homophobia, the internalized shame is all there. It was all there. And I felt like I couldn't do anything about it. But then I did. I took myself and said, I have to get out of this. I have to be able to live my life authentically. So now it's me facing those traumas and dealing with it. And one of the things to do when it comes on to dealing with trauma, you have to dissect the identity created around it. The person that was born out of that. Because your trauma is just, technically it's more from memory than something that's actively happening to you. And because my mind has always been on survival mode, it feels as if we have to constantly live in that, even though I'm in a totally different country, even though I have more rights and freedoms here than that I would have back home. It's the baggage of all of that was still there, and I had to go deal with it. And then on this path so far, I've had to learn how to forgive people without an apology, because deep down it's like you're wronged, and these people said and did stuff to you, from like your own family and people that knew you, your own classmates at the time. You would want an apology, but you're not going to get it. So for me, I had to learn that forgiveness is more about releasing that connection with the situation or those people, setting yourself free. Because that's how you're going to be able to navigate dealing with your traumas. Like, you have to forgive for your own sake, not for those people. You don't have to, you forgive for your own for your own stability, so that you can move on and live your life. And another thing too is like having to pick parts of myself that's actually me, and what I had to create in order to defend myself, to protect myself.
You talk about that deconstructing, right? And it's that piece of really seeing who am I and what is this?
Deconstructing my own internalized homophobia and the internalized shame, and deconstructing just the foundation of who I am, basically.
So what, like you say, working on these things and having the resources here, like what do you find yourself doing in order to kind of deal with that? Like, you said you went to a counselor and...
Yeah, I'm currently seeing a therapist. We're going to start EMDR.
Oh, nice.
Eye movement, desensitization, reprocessing, to deal with them, to face those memories, and to face all of that that's been built up over the years. And, then another necessary step I took was like, I know going back home isn't an option for me, because like, as I said, back home, not very tolerant, like culturally not acceptable, and it's also like, I wouldn't have much, the same human rights that I have in Canada now. So with the support of my mom, shockingly, and her side of the family, because as I said, her side of the family, they came around. With their support, I was able to get the convention refugee status because I'm safer here than I am safe than back home. So they were on my side. But this is after like so many conversations with my mom. She finally kind of understood everything, my entire 12 pages of everything that I went through, and I think that kind of like pushed her to make some changes and say that she apologized. That was like so groundbreaking for me at the time. It was like when she apologized for her homophobia towards me, and that was hard because I'm like, oh, I've always been mentally preparing for the day that she will say, we're no longer call me because you're not going to change. But instead she made a full 360 in a way, and she's had to unlearn so many things and talk about some truths that happened when I was younger, because I'm guessing one of my aunts revealed that at a young age it was noticeable that I wasn't like the other boys. So it was just like, and my mom being a young mom at 22 and everything, she didn't know what to do. And my dad would come home and like scream at her that you're raising my son to be a girl and stuff like that. And so she was just having, quote unquote, rough me up, but it wasn't really rough me up. It was more like trying to get this thing basically out of me. So there was like a lot of her part of like, her apologizing did contribute to some of my healing. Because now it's like, she finally sees what was happening. And she apologized that she wasn't there to protect me on an emotional level as well. Because as I said, I didn't have that support. I couldn't really turn to anyone because everyone was basically a danger to me. Right? So it was just, yeah. So right now, things are going great with my mom. My dad is a different story, but...
And it was the convention refugee status that you're given, and what's that?
Oh, so that is, so it's protection that the person cannot return home due to their home country due to the set of like laws or societal discrimination or unusual punishment. So it's, it was a long process. It was like 2 years long, and it's like I had a lawyer at the time too, so it was like gathering evidence of like, for myself really, because you have to prove, which was kind of weird, proving that you were actually gay. It was kind of weird to do that. Yeah, they do know that they had to see my very, very provocative Grindr messages. It was kind of funny.
They're like, prove it.
Like, they prove it. Did you did you send them? Did you send nudes to a guy? Like, basically, that was my that was
Your
the
evidence.
My evidence was Grindr messages, and I didn't put those guys' names on the thing, of course, because I'm like, I'm not gonna out someone. The government doesn't need to know that. But I have to. The funny thing was covering up the nudes with emojis. And the emoji stickers on the nudes in the Grindr conversations. I'm like, yay, you guys are not fully seeing me naked, yay. So yeah, it was a long process, but a very emotional, because a re-traumatizing process as well, because now it made me even realize that, oh, I need to go deal with my shit. Basically, I need to go deal with it. I need to get better. If I want to live a fulfilling life, I need to get better. So the journey now is deconstructing your identity from your trauma, and like learning how to forgive without an apology, and like forgive for the sake of just releasing yourself from those connections. Radical acceptance of knowing that your voice isn't going to always get heard. And it's not going to be, people are not going to want to hear your side of anything, because sometimes we do go through life where our side of a story isn't told.
Yeah.
Right? And many, like, throughout my high school life, there were many times where, because, like, my voice was taken away. When it came on to defending myself at school, because I did try. Like, I'm not going to say that I just sat and took everything. It was more, I did try to defend myself, but it wasn't, these people were harassing Jonte. So Jonte defending himself, it was Jonte had an angry reaction. So it was also invalidating at the same time.
Yeah.
It's like, I want to defend myself, but if I defend myself, I get in more trouble than the people who were bothering me. So I had to learn to, like, radically accept that these situations, my voice was never heard, and I couldn't do anything about it. Really, because again, it was a child versus the vice principal and dean of discipline of the school. And just remember, like, having to go through this story and just be like, this is the things that happened and how, and these memories of that are locked away are kind of slowly revealing themselves. Because when it comes down to trauma, your brain tries to protect you in every instance. To be quite frank, the brain is an asshole if you really want to get into it. So to protect myself, I think my own mind was just like, we're going to bury this. We're not going to remember this. So now that I'm facing that trauma, it's slowly, the memories that I pushed down, the things that happened that were too hurtful to deal with are now slowly seeping out.
Revealing themselves.
And then realizing how it was, like, how bad it was. Because, I was, like, kind of downplaying what I was going through. And when I was here, when I got to Canada, I downplayed it a little bit. I was like, okay, I went through this. But then I looked at the scale of everything that happened, and I'm like, oh my God, I survived this. But now I have to survive myself. Because now it's like, oh, shoot, I went through this and I didn't deal with it. I didn't get a chance to deal with it. How do I deal with this? So so that's kind of journey I'm having right now. It's facing my trauma.
It's so brave to do. And I mean, reclaiming those parts of yourself and the innocence and the grief and all the things that come along with that, right? It's hard work. It's not easy, and more to be revealed, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's one of those. It's like that right now.
That's kind of currently where you're at with things, is kind of just getting the healing and starting to unthaw and realizing, wow, this is bigger than I thought it was, or there's more here under the surface than I let on.
Yeah, because it did affect, I would be, like, to be completely honest, it did affect, like, some of my relationships that I've had in Cranbrook. My trauma response to certain situations, it was not from a place of logic and, like, my complete self. It was a trauma response. Someone does something sometimes, and it's a trauma response kicks in rather than from the wise mind where you balance logic and emotion. Some of my failed friendships, I would say, was, like, my actions was a trauma response rather than.
Do you have, like, an example of what it would look like acting out of trauma response?
My ex-roommates were a perfect example of that. I was reacting to the situation from a place of trauma. For example, like, they were saying certain things to people, and because, like, I kind of needed to maintain that perfectionism, because perfectionism personality, my trauma response was, oh, spreading stuff about you now. And this happened back home, remember? Kind of thing. And now I became a version of myself that I didn't want to be. Because my inner child is like, we have to defend ourselves this time. We're not going to just sit back and take it. We're going to defend ourselves this time. So that was an example of like a trauma response where I said some things and I was like, oh, whoa. Didn't think I would do it, but then I was like, oh shoot, I have the capability of saying stuff like that to a person. And not that I feel too guilty about it, it was just more like, oh, this was not from a place of a person that's healed and dealt with it. It's from a place of someone who's hurt. And that is why the quote, hurt people is kind of like a real thing for a lot of people.
Hurt people, hurt people.
Yeah.
Healed people, heal people. That's another way to look at it. And it sounds like you're starting and doing the healing work that's required to kind of not go back into those same patterns and kind of have those situations where you're not acting out of, a place of health and love, I guess, right? Or logic and balance. So that's a good start.
Yeah, it's like, and that kind of pushed me in that direction of, oh yeah, as you said, I have some things to still work on.
Yeah.
I need to deal with this because trauma can also be suffocating. It can also be that way. It's also like, because it keeps you in that spot, even though, and it keeps in that spot because what your brain is trying to do is protect you. But your brain is not recognizing that we're no longer in that survival mode. We're in a better position, we're in a better place. So it's kind of hard to rewire your brain to do that, to recognize that we don't need to always be protective. We can let go a little bit, we can move forward a little bit. So that was that it pushed me on that journey, like I need to do this. I need to do this for myself. Because it's not just affected my friendships, but even my view on relationships and intimacy. It kind of just like, if I want to have a sustainable life with a future partner and a stable job and everything, and to work on myself, I have to release, as I said, I have to deconstruct the identity I created around my trauma.
What do you think that the thing is that you struggle most with today?
My self-acceptance is still a big thing. That the shame around being gay is still there. Right? And that's the thing, like, where some people sometimes get confused because it's like, oh, you don't really seem like the person that is ashamed about it because you will outwardly say to someone, yeah, I'm whatever. And I'm gay and everything. And, we wouldn't expect you to be the person to not. You seem to be like super proud about it. And it's like, it's that perfectionism that I like to play. That perfect person, which is one of the symptoms of quiet BPD. That's the one I have. It's perfectionism.
What is it?
I'm quiet BPD.
Quiet?
It's more inward. It's not outward, like the extrinsic word. The extrinsic BPD has more of those symptoms of outbursts of anger. You can visually see that the person is not well. Yeah. For me, it's more like, oh yeah, you don't have any issues at all. That's how I look to people, and I know this because it's like people think that I have like a stable head. And also like what I've been through pushes me to the kindness that I like to spread to other people. Yeah. And why I treat people with respect, because I understand what it's like to be treated less than human.
Well, that's kind of neat then. It's like the biggest kind of struggle is the self-acceptance, but the biggest strength in all that is what you're able to give back because of the experience, right? So it's like, it's kind of that balance of power, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to experience and go through the depths and the darkness to be able to kind of shed the light, right? And I feel like that part's so true. And I know that you do have a big bright light and people know you around town and you have a big energy, and you know, like, I think that comes with, well, I don't know, but I think that's part of it, right? Like, you are a light in the community. I feel that. And
to an extent.
yeah.
But yeah, it's part of the reason why I am the way I am, is just going through everything that I went through, going through the extreme, that level of harassment and discrimination. It kind of put me in a position where I didn't want to turn out to be exactly like them. I wanted to just be a different person. Like, you know, these people treated me like this, but I can spread to the entire world. Not the entire world, but to the world that I'm around. I'm going to display kindness. I'm going to, you know, be super open to other people and not have anyone feel that way. Because that's one of my big things. Like, I would not want someone in my life to feel, or anyone around me to feel as if they're less than human. Because no one deserves that, you know. And that is why for me, I can, like, anyone can talk to me about anything, and I'll be like, plethora of, I'll be like your unlicensed therapist. And then for myself, it's just, oh, I can't do anything. So that's one of the things about having quiet BPD and being high functioning. It's, oh, I can help other people, but I also I'm not great at helping myself. But it does bring me some sense of purpose and joy that I can make one person in whether it's at work or on the street, feel as if they're seen and someone is there for them. So that's kind of like why I post so many motivational quotes on Facebook. every couple of days, it's this one motivational piece where it helps some people.
Yeah.
And it might help
One person.
One person. I've gotten some people say that this is right timing for you to say that. So it was just.
Now's the time. What would you tell? I mean, aside from what you've shared, which is a lot and is plenty, but if there was that one motivational piece that you could share to someone that was listening that might help them, is there something just that you would like to end the conversation off with and leave them with?
There's so many choices right now.
What's your favorite one?
I'm just going to go back to remembering that your self-worth is not contingent on other people. Yeah. It's something, it's yours to own. Right? Don't let other people make you feel that way. Because in the end, it's not fun, I would say. But yeah, that was something that I want everyone to learn, is your self-worth is more important. It's very important. It's not, you shouldn't rely on other people to feel good enough, especially people who are not contributing to your life in any way.
It's yours. It's inherited. No one gets to take it from you.
No one gets to take it from you, and that's one of my big things, is like, one of the ways I tackle my own shame is around my sexuality is, no one's going to take this from me anymore. I'm not going to let these people define me or define who I am as a person. So, and do reach out for help if you need to.
Yeah.
Reach out for help. I know it's scary sometimes to be vulnerable with someone, but there are people out there that will listen, that will be there, that will try to be there for you. Just, take your steps that you need to take, but it is very important to remember your self-worth and ask for help if you need it.
I think that's a really great place to end off, unless you had something else that you felt like you needed to share before we close up.
No, not really. It's just, I think everyone understood everything.
Yeah, I think I did.
Yeah, so it's just more of, just know that it's life. It's a journey.
Yeah.
It's a journey, and it's gonna be a journey for a while. But in the end, I think we will all come out on top in some way.
Jonte, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast and sharing bits of yourself, and I do feel like it will help someone else, and it's helped me, and if we can just spread the message to one person and it helps one person, then that's all that's all it's about, right? It's just kind of putting it out there to let people know that they're not alone, and that, you know, it's okay to struggle and go through things and have things, and we can kind of work to get to the other side of them, right? And yeah, I think it's that piece of connection that is able to kind of bring people together and just hope.
Yeah, and sometimes another hard thing I learned recently too is like you have to sometimes walk away from certain people.
Yeah.
Because if they're not going to be there to help you move and like be there for you, then they don't deserve a spot.
Yep.
And it can be hard, but especially if it's someone like a parent or anything, it can be really difficult.
Yes.
So, you know, if you have to walk away sometimes, take some space, take the space and walk away if you have to.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to cut those ties.
Yeah, you gotta sometimes give yourself the permission to do what's best for you, right? And sometimes not best for, maybe it's not what you want, or it's not best for the other person, but it's best for you. And I think when we start taking ourselves seriously and kind of unpacking some of that stuff, we see a little bit more clearly about what it is we truly need. And, you know, we're not gonna put it on the line anymore.
Yeah.
Right?
That's where I'm heading with that.
Yeah.
And now I get to do all this stuff I didn't get to do in my childhood.
Woo woo!
Right? Musicals. Wasn't allowed to do it back home, so now I'm like, I can do it.
Yay!
So that's part of the healing process too, is sometimes returning back to things you enjoy.
Yes.
Especially if your inner child enjoys.
Yep.
That can be a little bit helpful too. So if you're dealing with your trauma, sometimes, you know, do things that you remember brought you joy. Do those tough times.
Yes.
Which for me was just artwork and musicals, which I didn't get to do much of it, but.
Well, I wish you plenty of them on your healing journey.
Thank you.
I'll be there with you.
I'm in one right now.
The musical?
I'm in a Rocky Horror Show.
Oh, nice.
So I'm excited for that one.
Yay.
Yeah. So.
Well, again, thank you so much for coming on here. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Yeah, thank you
really
for having me.
appreciate you coming on to the Hold On to Your Heart project.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm Morgan. I'm the producer of the Hold On to Your Heart Project podcast. Thanks for tuning in to another episode. If you'd like to find out more about what we're all about and check out other episodes, you can find us at holdontoyourheartproject.com or on YouTube and Instagram at Hold On to Your Heart Project. Thanks for stopping by.